Hello all my Kinvians, and welcome to a brand new episode of Discovering Steven Universe. Today the episode I'm going to be watching is We Need to Talk. And I mean, I don't know, maybe Steven gets in trouble and Steven or the Gems have to have a very stern talk with him. I would say, well, I mean, of course this is Steven, he won't get in trouble, but Steven gets Steven gets himself into forms of trouble, shall we say. Oh, and by the way, if you're not a fan of me chewing gum during the videos, you're not going to enjoy this because I have a piece of gum in my mouth and I like chewing it, so meh. But anyway, let's get into it with We Need to Talk. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, story time. We need to talk. And unfortunately, most of this won't be on YouTube, obviously. This, you can see my whole reaction to this on the other channel, Daily Motion. Oh, is Pearl jealous? What? That wasn't obvious at all.
No, I don't think so.
Well then, I will try. These things are expensive. Oh, gee.
Amethyst, give us some privacy. Yeah!
I love baby Amethyst.
Do it, but it won't work if you don't.
Aww.
What? That's not a problem. I love humans. You're all so funny.
Look, these last few months have been great,
Oh, yes.
but I'm getting a little worried about the future.
Oh, just ask Garnet.
How'd you end up with Harpo, Groucho, and Chico?
3 long stories. What are they doing? Shh.
It worked.
I think this one's my favorite. I think he's her favorite, too.
Aww.
Whoa. So you guys were never able to...
Human beings?
Human beings. Human beings.
Oh. That... Huh. That was an interesting way to finish it. Hey, I actually got it before the annoying end sound for Cartoon Network. Yay. Alright. Woo. A lot. I mean, on one hand, not a lot happened, but on the other hand, a lot happened. As far as learning new things and... Wow. Okay, so I'm going to get right on taking down my notes, and I will see you all after the quick cut for the review portion of this video. Alright, all my Kinvians, time for the review portion of this video, and I mean, again, this episode didn't have really any action to it, but as far as overall quality, I mean, this episode was just phenomenal. You know, giving away my overall thoughts there, but it was, gotta say, it was a really good episode. But let's get into my favorite parts of the episode, starting with just the weird band names on the records. I hope that this is sort of a continuing joke as the show goes along, that we'll get to see more of Greg's records and some of these weird band names. I don't know if they are necessarily references to actual bands. Well, I mean, what was it? The Philosophers, and then it made mention of Nietzsche. I mean, you know, that references that, obviously, but I'm curious whether or not some of these maybe reference real bands or not. But regardless, I would love to see this become more, sort of a running joke in the show, just these weird, crazy band names on the records that we see of Greg's. But moving on from there, my next favorite part of this episode was the sudden STEVONNIE fusion. Looking back, I mean, just the fact that they were dancing and spinning around, like, when I was watching, it didn't dawn on me until, obviously, the light of the fusion sparked up, and I was just like, and it caught me by surprise. But looking back, it should have been like, oh, I wonder if this is going to result in a fusion. But yeah, I love that they did that, and it's an excellent setup to what is the subject of this episode overall. But that brings me to my next favorite part of this episode, was the VHS, or, well, I mean, we've had other VHSs before, but the music video with Greg, Rose, Garnet, and Amethyst, and technically Pearl, because she comes in just to, you know, grind Greg's gears, which is hilarious and adorable, and it's very, in my opinion, it's kind of a love triangle done right, or at least done in a good, entertaining way. But it is the music video there, and the song itself was really good. I know that basically everyone in the show, they are musicians or they are singers, and I can't remember who it is that voices Greg, but I don't know if maybe he's just a regular voice actor or not, but I mean, he does a good enough job when it comes to singing. You know, some of the previous songs and previous episodes being big examples. But yeah, I really like that music video. And then, as I mentioned already, the whole love triangle thing. My next favorite part is just how Pearl is so annoyed at I was gonna say Garnet's, at Rose's affection and Greg's affection for Rose. So she sort of she fights back in her own way, which is to fuse with Rose and make rainbow quartz. And, actually, you all get to see me sort of kind of adding a note here, because, yeah, that's that's actually a question that I wanted to ask in this review, but I forgot to write it down. And you might be able to figure out what that question is going to be. But anyway, making that fusion and then the whole mic dropping thing, I found it hilarious. I found it, again, it's just a way that this show is able to pull off this love triangle thing, which is very, very stereotypical and very overdone in most shows in general, but because of who these characters are and what they can do, it's done in a really interesting and special way, in my opinion. So yeah, Pearl being annoyed and the way she sort of takes that out, I thought that was really enjoyable. My next favorite part of the episode is just baby Amethyst, which I know that's probably not the right name for her. I mean, it's just Amethyst. But, I mean, she's so tiny and cute, I can't help but call her baby Amethyst. And just everything about her in this episode, very much like baby Amethyst in the previous episode, where it was discussed how Greg met the crystal gems and Rose. But yeah, so baby Amethyst, big favorite in this episode by far. My next favorite part was Greg's fusion dance. Fusion dance, I guess I should put in quotations. But that scene there and what he tried to do, like how he was trying to make that connection with Rose, that, I mean, in the end, humans aren't able to fuse with full gems, but at the same time, it led to them having that strong connection. It led to, some drama, which I'm about to touch on, but it led to things getting more serious, and Greg and Rose becoming closer in that regard. Not becoming a fusion, so to speak, but coming together in the relationship sense, which, as we all know, with Garnet, that is what her fusion, that is what she is based on. The relationship of Ruby and Sapphire, their love for each other. So even though it's not literal, it did lead to them figuratively fusing. So yeah, I loved that whole aspect of the episode. My next favorite part was, it really had to do with, what came between when they did the dance and, the finish of the episode, where it's clear that Greg and Rose have come closer together. But it's the fact that Rose doesn't take Greg seriously, or seemingly even humans in general. Rose doesn't take them seriously, but Greg wants to know her. He wants to get to know her more. And it made this reveal, at least to me, maybe I'm interpreting it wrong, but Rose just sort of sees Greg, like the other humans, as just these things. They're adorable. They're like, it's like a puppy, basically. And, she's having her fun, and he's having fun, and there was definitely some implication that some real fun was being had. Again, just the way I interpreted it. But yeah, it was that, what I perceived as revealing of her view of humanity. It's like she loves humans, she loves humanity, she loves the earth, but at the same time, it's not the same kind of love that, at the very least, is truly starting to build between her and Greg, beforehand, but also especially being solidified in this episode. So I love that entire idea of it. It's just like, she doesn't take Greg seriously, but Greg really does want to get to know her more, and that does lead, like that discussion there, of all that confusion does lead to them getting closer, forming their own fusion, shall we say. And then finally, my last favorite part of this episode is a very simple moment at the end, but it's when Greg and Connie bond. And he invites her to, basically talk to him whenever she may need to talk to someone, another human that is able to relate to this kind of situation, whereas obviously most humans won't be able to. So yeah, I really liked that aspect of the episode. Now, as for annoyances, I only had one, and it doesn't overall take away from the episode. It was just kind of like how some of my other annoyances work. It's something that kind of took me out of that episode, although I can see how it works within the episode. And it's the close-ups. Just the close-ups of Greg and Rose. And again, I understand why it's there. It's showing this very close and intimate conflict between the two because of their relationship and how it changes through that time. But I think what bothered me most about the close-ups is how, well, in cartoons in general, whenever something is able to move, or it's going to move, it tends to be a lighter shade. And anything that's just the background, or something that is a static object, usually they tend to be a bit darker, maybe a bit dimmer. Kind of like in the previous episode with all of Steven's shirts. The ones that would move or get folded, they were a little bit brighter. They stood out. Whereas the ones that never moved were just very stationary, and they seemed a bit more dim. And because of the close-ups, especially with Rose, that was very apparent, because during those close-ups, it's like her mouth would move and her eyes would move, but nothing else would. And again, I think it's just something that irks me personally, that there was that stark contrast of, they didn't even have, like, you know, the animated model for Rose there. It was just like her face, and the vast majority of her face in that situation was a background image. It was of that dimmer shade, or that maybe, like, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but then the eyes and the mouth were, they stood out from the rest. And again, I realize that's a total nitpick, but it is something that bothered me, despite the fact that I know that those close-ups were necessary, because it adds to the tension. It adds to this very, you know, they are being very intimate and close-up, so it makes sense that the camera would pan in that much. I just wish they had done it a little bit better as far as Rose goes. But, okay, so those are my favorite parts and my annoyances. No moments of terror this episode, thank God. But, yeah, you know, as always, if you have any of your own favorites or annoyances, leave them in the comments down below. But moving on from there, as for track of the episode, and this one is definitely obvious, as long as I'm getting the name right, which I may or may not, but What Can I Do For You? Just that entire opening song was... it was so enjoyable. I really loved it. Even Greg's guitar solo there, which I love the fact that they include, like, the realism of an electric guitar. It's not something that's been overly modified or produced in a studio. It reflects how, okay, Greg is playing and it sounds good, but at the same time, there are, like, little mistakes, or like little sounds, I don't know how to describe that, of the guitar that aren't necessarily mess-ups, but they're just little extra sounds that make it more of a live performance. And I really love that element of it, too. And then, of course, Baby Amethyst on the drums, and, you know, all that. So it's just the track itself, What Can I Do For You, was really, really good. If there were any others that you can think of, definitely let me know. I'd love to hear it. Now, as for my quote of the episode, there were so many good ones in this. But I think the one that stood out the most to me, and it's what solidified, or it's part of not only me and, well, us the viewers being able to see that Greg and Rose have grown closer together because of this, but it acknowledges that Pearl does too. And it's the quote, it's basically Amethyst first and then Pearl. I think this one's my favorite. And Pearl says, I think he's her favorite too. And, you know, it hurts for Rose. I'm sure more of that relationship is going to come to light in the future. It's going to be expanded on and fleshed out, but I mean, overall, just based on what we know of Pearl's feelings for Rose, the way she feels about her, and I mean, how much Greg loved Rose and she loved Greg, and Steven came out of this, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that progresses. And I feel like these two lines just really, not even so much set a groundwork, but it really hit close as far as that topic goes. So yeah. Now, moving on from there, my questions, which I actually have 3. I actually have 3 questions this episode, so please bear with me. The first of which is, did Greg know that Garnet was a fusion that far back? And I ask this because my computer is wanting me to restart. Anyway, I ask this because of where she pulls down her shades and we see the 3 eyes. Now, because of what Greg knows at that point about the crystal gems, which is next to nothing, again, I'm just curious whether or not that was an indication that he already knew that Garnet was a fusion, or maybe just, I don't know how to describe it, but I guess that is my one question. It's a weaker one, admittedly, but did Greg know that Garnet was a fusion that far back? Now, my second question is, what other humans has Rose loved? Because it is mentioned, like he asks her, and she isn't really sure what to say, so she asks him back, and he says yes, he has loved other humans, and so she replies yes. Which implies that because of how old all of the gems essentially are, thousands of years old, that she has had others that maybe she has viewed in a similar way as Greg, maybe? Which would definitely lead into why Pearl feels as strongly about why Greg is just a phase for Rose. And I'm curious whether or not those might ever be brought up as a subject. Like, who knows, maybe there will be an episode where they touch on the history of Beach City or something like that, and it'll be mentioned who some of the other humans were, like the humans that fought alongside the crystal gems. I don't know, just kind of speculating there, but I'm curious, what other humans has Rose loved, as far as that implication goes? And then my final question is, will Rainbow Quartz appear again? Now, obviously, it's not going to appear the same. Rainbow Quartz isn't going to be able to appear the same because Steven is not... Like, he has the same gem, but he does not embody the same body. He's not even the same being as Rose. She was a crystal gem. He is half human, half crystal gem. So, whenever the day comes that Pearl and Steven do fuse, will it be Rainbow Quartz, or will it be another gem altogether, or will it still be called Rainbow Quartz but will look completely different? I'm legitimately curious as to how that would go down. Like, it would blow my mind personally if when they fuse they're able to somehow form into that same character that was Rainbow Quartz. I don't even know if anything like that has even happened so far in the show, but I do hope that it does, so that like that little question of mine could be answered. Now, if it has been answered, just say whether or not it has. Don't actually, reveal whether or not there's any difference. But otherwise, whatever. But okay, those are all my questions. This is running long. I do have a theory, and this is pretty evident based on a lot of stuff that we've continued to learn about Rose, both from just hearsay and exposition and this episode. But my theory is that Rose has a lot of dark secrets. Like, a lot of dark secrets. The simple mention that, well, when Greg says he knows almost nothing about her and she says that's a good thing, I'm curious what those secrets might be. Like, secrets that none of the other crystal gems may know. Something that Steven may end up learning through his gem somehow. It's hard to say, but that is my theory, that she has a lot of dark secrets, some of which may most likely never come to light in the course of the show, but I think some will. So, yeah. So that's a theory, sort of an overarching theory as far as this entire show goes, but I'm interested to see what comes of that. And as I mentioned already, I think this episode overall is just great. Again, no action, but it wasn't necessary because of the story. It was story time, and it was a heck of a story too. Just a great episode through and through. So yeah, definitely big thumbs up. I hope we continue on this incline of great episodes as it continues to move along. And that basically brings us to the end of this video. And I'm trying, this entire time I've been trying to figure out how I should say the next episode's name. But before I even attempt that, I just want to say, as always, everyone, please do leave your thoughts, like some of your favorites of this episode, annoyances, quotes, tracks, so on and so forth. Leave them in the comments down below. Let me know some of your thoughts about what I had to say here. Maybe I interpreted something wrong. or at least in your mind, maybe I interpreted something wrong. I would love to hear, your thoughts as far as that goes. But moving on from there, in the next episode, we'll be watching CHILLE. That's as close as I can get. There's an extra L, otherwise I would just say Chile. So yeah, I'll try that. CHILLE. Hopefully that's something that's mentioned in the next episode, so I'll kind of have an idea of how to pronounce it. But yes, until next time, everyone, I am PapaKen, and I will see you for the next episode, CHILLE, here on Discovering Steven Universe. Later.